Good afternoon, everybody. We're going to get started in just a couple of minutes. And then, Sarah, once I am done speaking, Nicole and I are going to turn off our cameras. And
Okay.
If you want to turn yours off at first and then turn it back on when you're up, you are welcome to. You can leave it on the whole time if you'd like.
Okay.
Up to you. 14 people, marvelous, like it.
Excuse me.
I'll give it one more minute and we will get going. All right, let's do it. Make sure. So everyone knows we are going to be recording today. Thank you, everyone that is on the call thus far, and as people continue to join us. Welcome to our Women of Withum's presentation on enhancing your at-home routine. I'm Kristen Hambrook, a marketing manager at Withum and one of the organizers of our Women of Withum initiatives in the New England area. We're very excited today to have two guest speakers joining us to provide us with tips and tricks to tackle our at-home routine in this crazy time. With many of us either still working from home or starting to get back into the at-home / in the office, our routines are definitely shaken up a bit, and we need to find that balance again or for the first time. This brings us a great opportunity to bring in positive changes into our daily life, whether it's internally or externally and in our physical presence or our office space or our kitchen space, turned office space, regardless of where you are doing your work daily. We have an opportunity to enhance it with tips and tricks from our two guest speakers today. We're excited to have David Winston, the president and owner of Winston Flowers, and Sarah Harmon, a therapist, yoga and mindfulness teacher, and founder of School of Moms, with us to give us their insight on what they're seeing in this new normal. They'll give us some tips on what they're sharing with their clients and some takeaways for us specifically. These are our two speakers. I am going to turn off both my camera and the presentation and just let our presenters take it away. As time goes on, please feel free to ask any questions in the chat, and we will relay those onto the presenters themselves, and we will go from there. We are not seeing my screen anymore, correct?
Correct.
All right, perfect. Then let me introduce you to David Winston. Take it away.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for inviting me today and sharing a little bit about myself and Winston Flowers. As Kristen said, I'm the owner of Winston Flowers. I own it with my brother, Ted Winston. It's a third generation business in Boston. We've just celebrated our 75th year. We've been on Newbury Street for 75 years in the same store. We have now 4 retail locations. We had 7 retail locations. We closed 3 in the past, since COVID. We decided to close a few stores, but we have 4 strong stores that are open now. We are also in Greenwich, Connecticut, and in Long Island City, New York. We have a design studio, and we are a full service florist, and we have a garden center, we have a garden design division, we have a plant maintenance division. So anything to do with plants or flowers, we do, and we've been doing for a long time. We also have other aspects of our business. So we have a gourmet division. We do gourmet baskets and fruit baskets and so forth, and gift baskets. But everything that has to do with flowers and plants, we do. So I encourage everybody today that if you have any questions regarding anything at all regarding any of those categories, I'm happy to talk about them. I think that with the recent, with COVID and people working from home, we have had kind of a boom in the industry. There's been a boom in the plant sales and kind of home beautification and people's surroundings inside and outside. So when we first opened up in May, we were able to do outside plantings again. And right away, there was a big demand, in the residential community. Of course, hotels and restaurants and offices, that business kind of went away and still hasn't come back. But for people who were at home, we had a very big demand to kind of go in and, after winter and do spring plantings and containers and beautifies people's outdoor space so they could enjoy that. And also interior, we do a lot, we do a lot with, our specialty is kind of containers and, really interesting design and vessels. And we bring a lot of pottery in from all over the world, mostly from Belgium and Holland and France and so forth. But so inside and out, our garden design division has been really, really strong. Also, of course, our gift business of people sending flowers to people as a gift, has also actually gone up since COVID because people want to stay connected and stay in touch. And so to reach out to whether it's a parent or a child or somebody in healthcare that maybe you want to thank or just stay connected to, there's been a big increase in that business also, because I think there's a need when people can't be with each other to reach out and connect and send a gift like flowers, which has a lot of, it's very personal. And they say it with flowers because it goes a long way, and people had a lot of sentiments they wanted to share, and staying connected with people and thanking people through these kind of difficult times the past 6 months. So again, floral gifts and floral design is something that, we probably send out 400 deliveries a day around the greater Boston and New York area. Our garden design division is very busy with the inside and outside. And, we're starting to do smaller weddings and smaller gatherings. The people who maybe had a big wedding planned are still having a small wedding and maybe a bigger celebration in the future. But of course, weddings and events is slow to come back. And our corporate business with people not in the offices, or our hotel business or restaurants, all of that is still slow to come back. But those other aspects of our business are very, very strong. So I'm happy to talk about any category, whether it's plants, care and selection, inside, outside, floral design, anything regarding flowers, talk more about my company, where the flowers come from, and so on and so forth. But I don't want to take up too much time. I'll pass it over to Sarah, and then maybe later we can come back and talk about some other things. Okay.
Thanks,
Thank you.
David. Yeah, so I'll introduce myself, and then I'd love to ask you a quick question on behalf of the work that I do. So my name is Sarah Harmon. I'm a licensed mental health therapist. I have a private practice in downtown Crossing, which is virtual right now. So I have a clinical practice, but I'm also a yoga and mindfulness teacher. And I am the founder of the School of Mom, which is a COVID launched company. It's called the School of Mom, and Mom stands for Mothering Oneself Mindfully. And so I'm actually about to launch the second round of what we call Mothering Oneself Mindfully Foundations, which is a 6-week program for women and moms to learn and understand and integrate the foundational teachings of mindfulness into your life. And so I would love for people to check it out. The registration actually opens late tomorrow night, theschoolofmom.com. But as a therapist right now, I've been riding the wave of COVID along with my clients, which is, it's a unique time to be a therapist. It's one of the reasons why I launched the School of Mom. I was not going to launch it in May. When I did, I was going to launch it later, but there was such a need from that I was hearing from my clients for community and for resources, because it's been, as you know, a roller coaster, and there's been many waves of emotions, and then we come to a good spot, and then we go through another round. And so there's been a lot of heightened anxiety, obviously a lot of isolation. As a therapist, that's something we screen for, and now we're encouraging people to do it. And so people are, especially people that might not have partners or roommates, spending a lot of time by themselves, which is really tough. So I think, I would love to, I can offer there's a lot that I'm talking about with my clients right now, but one thing I have been talking about since May is I know it's a buzzword, but it's the practice of self-care. But I like to be really clear about self-care, because I think when we hear self-care, it can actually be a turnoff for many people. They can say, oh yeah, especially for the parents I work with, it's like, oh, I don't have time for that. And with COVID happening, the global pandemic, a lot of the self-care that we traditionally integrated into our life is inaccessible. So even something as simple as, maybe now you can go get a pedicure or a haircut or something like that. It wasn't for a while, and definitely bigger events like weekends away and the things that maybe really recharged you and filled you up are inaccessible, and there's more of a need for them because stress levels are higher and you might have more happening with working from home. So when I talk about self-care, one thing I would love to leave you with today is just getting really clear on the micro practices of self-care. And when I talk about self-care, I use an umbrella term. So an umbrella term that encompasses everything from the smaller practices, like a deep breath. So even right now, as you're listening to me talk, just taking a deep breath in and feeling your belly expand, actually noticing your breath, maybe for the first time all day, and then exhale, letting it out. So something simple like 1 to 3 deep breaths is on the lower side of the self-care spectrum, and then on the bigger side might be that weekend away. But right now it's about doubling down on accessible practices that help to keep you grounded and help to keep you recharged, at least to a place where you feel like you can get through your day-to-day. And while the summer has been a nice respite, I think for a lot of people, we've been getting outside, there's been maybe a lift in just numbers, and things are open, and it feels very it feels a little bit different. I think there is this pending feeling of, oh boy, we're coming into darker months and colder months and flu season and all the things that my clients are talking about. And so it is a really good time right now to almost audit your day and your week, and to ask yourself, what are the practices that I'm doing regularly that aren't serving me, and what are the ones that are? And the belief that you don't have time, I would get clear on that. How are you spending your time? And are you, checking your phone for that screen time usage? You say you might not have time, but you did spend 45 minutes scrolling something. And so you could have done 20 minutes of a yoga class or a walk or something like that. So this really, I call it compassionate discipline, where we are, self-care is about discipline, about scheduling in and prioritizing the practices that serve you. And so that's really what I talk a lot about that in the School of Mom. I talk a lot about that with my clients. And so on that note, David, I think one thing I'm curious about is, as we're coming into the colder, the winter months, and we don't have nature that we love, right, in the summer and fall, it's so just beautiful. And then we come into winter and things go into hibernation. How, I'm wondering, just for people that might struggle with, seasonal affective disorder, where now it might be heightened because we're more isolated and there's more stress. Do you have suggestions on just a simple environment fix, like one type of plant or an area that we can create an environment that supports presence, right? Like when I see my flowers, I instantly, if I have flowers out or plants, it's a nice kind of deep breath. And so I wonder if you have any suggestions on that. And I think the thing about creating a space that is conducive to relaxation and deep breath is that you're more prone to doing it, right? So if we walk into a room that's cluttered and crowded and maybe our meditation cushion or our running sneakers are nowhere to be found, we're not probably going to engage in an activity, right? If the couch is just sitting right there and the clicker's right there, you might just sit down and go for it. But if you come into a space where you've set it up with a little sanctuary with some plants and maybe you have a little meditation cushion that makes it very obvious that that's something that you want to do, you're going to be more likely to do it. So I think when we think about setting up, this is a great synergy talking with David, in that when our outer spaces can reflect our inner spaces and vice versa. So if your inner space, i.e. your mind and your body and your emotional state, is quite chaotic and cluttered and the escalation level is high, what can you do in your outer space to help bring that down so that they're working together? And so David, I don't know if you want to elaborate on that, because I would love some tips with that. I mean, I have 2 young kids, so I'm constantly trying to find spaces that don't have clutter and toys thrown everywhere. And so any tips you have would be appreciated.
Well, I believe in that, everybody loves to be outside in nature. And then the next best thing to that is, you're in your home and you have a view, or you have windows, or you have a view out to nature. And then the next thing is to bring nature in the house when you don't have access to those other things. So I think when you have rooms, or if you're in an office or a basement office, and nowadays people are, I do believe that having access to nature and organic things has a lot to do with your psyche. I know there's a lot of science around the fact that plants give off oxygen and take in carbon dioxide, and there's scientific ways in which they actually do make you feel better, improve concentration, reduce stress, and all that from a scientific standpoint. But I actually am a firm believer in that. I think that I know that when I do gardening outside and I clean everything up, and I'm touching it, with your hands and cleaning things up, and then afterwards, especially when you water and you sit back, you actually get a feeling of you're in touch with nature. I think you're in touch with yourself. I think that you actually feel really good. You can actually almost feel that the plants are healthier and they've drank water. It's almost like after a rain when you go outside and you just feel and smell the grass and nature. And I think that anytime you have access to that, it does make you stop and pause and have some presence. I mean, that's the whole idea of flowers and plants, is that you stop, you get out of your head and you notice a flower or you notice a blossom in nature. And for that moment or a few seconds, you're not in your head. So that's what flowers and plants do, is it takes you out of your head and it makes you just present and in a different place. So when you can bring that in the home and surround your environment with things that are green and growing and changing day to day, they might be growing, they might be blooming, they might be responding to your care. When you water them, they perk up. I think it actually it makes your environment more just a more pleasant place to be. And I'm really a firm believer in that. And there's actually, there's plants, house plants. It's funny, back in the 70s, it was a big trend to have plants, and everywhere, there were like, terrariums and macrame hangers, and people had them in their window. It was kind of like a hippie thing. And it's come full circle that now it's very trendy to have plants all over the place. So it's actually, it's become very trendy and meaningful to people. I think that people, it's just like now, I'm surprised, especially through this COVID thing, so many people are getting pets and animals. And as people who would get dogs, I wouldn't believe they, would get them. Young people, single people, but I think that they yearn for connection and they yearn for something to take care of. And plants is a very easy thing, an inexpensive way to not only beautify your environment, but give you something rewarding to do and create an organic atmosphere. So I really believe that it's not only pretty but I think it actually makes you feel better. And honestly, they're inexpensive. So when you think of it, you can get a plant and you can, maybe it's not the right, you had to go away and you didn't water it and it died and you throw it away and it costs you $10. It's unlike a pet, or it's a fairly fun thing to experiment with. But I would just say that house plants, there's a lot of house plants out there that are very, very easy to take care of. There's a big trend with succulents. If you have some sun, that's succulents and cactus, and there's many kinds of succulents. There's Echeveria and pencil cactus and jade plants and all kinds of that. If you have some sun, they actually thrive on neglect. They don't need a lot of water. So that's why succulents are very popular. And on the other hand, there are a lot of plants that are very low light and easy, like philodendrons and dracaenas and ZZ plants. They also thrive on, neglect. And even if you don't water them, they might wilt a little and give you a sign that they need water, and you water them and they perk back up, but they won't die. So, there's a whole bunch of plants out there that are getting more challenging to take care of, and they drop their leaves, like ficus and things like that. But we specialize, we have a lot of plants that are easy to take care of, whether you have high light or low light. So I just think, I encourage people to, to surround themselves with that. And I think that that's why even in the workplace, the past couple of years, we've been a huge increase in, offices, public spaces and buildings and so forth are really paying a lot more attention to having more green. And, we try to do it, very, very stylish. You can do it, in your house, you can do it kind of bohemic and kind of, busy and whatever lifestyle type of look you want, or you can have it kind of high design and clean and interesting and have really interesting containers. So we can do any of the above, but I think the fact of having plants and greens in your environment is really a nice thing. And outside, you have the opportunity to plant something for fall right now. And then when that's over, you change it to winter. And when that's done, you have an early spring where bulbs come up and pansies, and then you have a late spring. So you have an opportunity to always have this change around and things constantly changing and being beautiful with each season and appreciating each season that New England has to offer. So I think it's just stimulating, it's fun, and it makes your environment really nice to be in. And at this time with COVID, I think it's more important than ever to do that.
Are there any plants among the ones you mentioned, or specifically that you would recommend for people with pets, especially those that are in apartments, so they might not necessarily have a deck for outdoor plants, but they might have cats or dogs, or ones they particularly don't want to, harm their animal by having, if they should
I think
ingest
there's a few plants that are actually, probably poisonous. I think poinsettias and Dieffenbachia. There's a few things that'll probably make your pet sick. I think other than that, the only thing you have to be careful of is, will they ruin them? Will they tip them over? Will they eat them? Will they play with them and have them fall over? So as long as you're careful on where you place them and you just don't get a handful that maybe are actually, quote, poisonous. I don't think they'll kill anybody, but they probably will make you sick. But I think it's just more about being careful that you don't get something that's kind of precarious and would tip over if you you get a substantial pot in a plant that would be on a shelf that's not as accessible. But I wouldn't stress too much about that. And I think people get too caught up in that sometimes and prohibits them the opportunity to have those things around.
I love
Awesome.
that. Thank you for saying that. It's funny, you made me think of something that some people kind of want to throw something at my head when I say this, but I think one of the gifts of COVID, and you don't really hear that phrase, but one of the gifts of COVID when we talk about self-care is that in the absence of the bigger things, right, the bigger flashy events and sometimes they're distractions, we've been forced almost to get back to some basics, and to get back to nature and to realize that just putting your feet on the grass is actually equally as effective, if not more, than a spa weekend away, right? And I'm hearing a lot of my clients say this of like, well, I don't really have any other options, so I guess I'm just going to go for a walk. And even the same walk, if you take the walk with the intention of being really present and observe and notice the shifts, as you say, David, notice the changing colors and weather and all those things, and make that a practice, it completely changes your experience, and it becomes a self-care practice in and of itself. And I just think that's so cool. And another thing you mentioned, which I was laughing about, is how the levels of, like, ideally you're outside and then you're inside looking out. I think I've been in my own denial state. Like, I love in-person therapy, and I've been stuck in this office just kind of missing my clients. But for 7 months or 6 months, my office was I look now out to Downtown Crossing, I was facing a wall. And I finally just said, what am I doing? Like, they're not coming back anytime soon. And I've turned my desk around. 6 months it took me to do this. And it's completely, I'm in a better mood at the end of the day because I take eye breaks, I can see some trees. And so I think, a great message is to actually audit your space again, but, just to remind yourself, even if it's, even if you don't know how long it's going to be, even if it's a month or a week, taking the time to turn your desk so that it sees something green, or going to wherever you go to buy. And actually, I wonder, obviously Winston Flowers is a wonderful place to buy that. Like, do you order them online from you guys? Like, what's the best way to, like, put this into action and get a plant on my desk?
Yeah, well, we have our website, we do e-commerce and we do touchless deliveries and all day long. So in the greater Boston and Greenwich, Connecticut, we have a location, and New York City, all the boroughs. So you can go online and order anything. There's plants, there's flowers, and so forth. So people order for them. I think there's been an uptick in people ordering for themselves. Most of the time it's gift related, but people just have something in their space because they don't want to go out, or they don't want to go to a retail store or something. But we also have 4 retail stores open. Our Newbury Street, our Chestnut Hill, and our Wellesley location is open, and our Greenwich, Connecticut store is open. We're following all the CDC guidelines and so forth. So those are all full of plants and flowers and so forth, so you can access them there. But through our website, winstonflowers.com, or any of the 4 retail sites, you can. That's how you can do business with us.
Cool.
Yeah, and it's funny listening to you. There's so much synergy because when you talk about presence and so forth. I mean, that's actually what flowers. I mean, any type of nature or art. That's why art is popular and nature is popular, because it's subliminal, but it forces you to stop and contemplate something or just admire something, and you're no longer thinking about your whatever it might be you're thinking about that typically might bring you down. It actually, when you look at beautiful things like flowers and artwork, it usually is beautiful and it brings you up, and you don't worry about the stresses of the day, or how much weight you've put on, or what you have to get done, or so forth, or the fact that you can't go out or whatever. So I just think that whether you're meditating or doing yoga or beautifying, or making sure you turn around and you have a window to look at, or putting some plants or flowers, it forces, you don't notice it, but it just forces you to come out of your head and be present. And I think that's why gardening, or cleaning up a plant and watering your plant, you're out of your head when you're doing that. And that's it's nice to have that around. In addition to the beauty, I think it's another benefit.
Yeah, I mean, I think, right, when people hang up this call, a great thing to do is to buy, you can even call it your presence plan, right? And if you're stuck in your head cooking up A through Z, no joke, A through Z scenarios of all, and oftentimes they're worst case scenarios, all the horrible things that could happen, and you're caught up in them in your mind, you're cooking these through, you can literally grab your little presence plan and just have a moment with it, right? Oh, hi, you're here in the present. And the only thing we know for sure is what's in the present, right? It's what's happening in our body, what's happening in the environment around us. So you can ask yourself, like, is this happening? If it's not happening right now, it's not happening. So whatever you're thinking about, and you ask yourself that question, if it's not happening right now, it's not happening. What is happening right now is this. It's in a purple vase. It's got little spiky things. It's got cool, staying really present with your plant. And you could actually bring it into your space as your prompt so that it's there as a little buddy to help you get out of your head and into the present. That's what nature is for. And COVID is really asking us to do that. It's an invitation to be present because the alternative is, this more anxious and stressed out state. And that really is the gift of nature and of just a simple plant. So,
yeah. And it's even more important as we approach the winter months, and you can't go outside as much. There's not as much access to nature outside because the flowers have gone and the plants are, are defoliating and so forth. So it's nice to spruce up your inside and have a little bit of life going on. And like I said, even when you're caring for your plants, just that act of just not only looking at them, but once a week you take them and you take off the brown leaves and you take them over to the sink and you give it some water and it perks up a little bit. And just that whole process is I think a very healthy process. It again takes you out of your head and you're taking care of something, and most of the time they respond well, and they might grow a little over the coming weeks. You can fertilize them a little bit. You might decide to turn it so each side gets light, but all of this is like, it's therapeutic, I think.
My husband's been really into sourdough bread making. He's on that train, so I think I'm going to get into plants. He can do bread. I'll do
less
plants.
carbs.
Yeah, exactly. Much healthier.
Sarah, you showed us before we got on that you have a plant right next to you, and David, you gave us a good little tip that.
Yeah. This is a plant that hasn't thrived on neglect, as David said. It's been neglected and it's got some, sad brown tips, but David just said to cut them off. And how often, so for a succulent, how often should I be watering something like this?
Well, that's a Dracaena, and that probably may have suffered from lack of water or just dryness in the house because there's the air conditioning's on, the windows closed, there's not a lot of humidity. So if it goes dry and it's dry in the house, it might get brown tips on it. So just the cutting at an angle, the tips of the Dracaena would just eliminate the brown. They might in time turn brown again just a little bit, but all it is it's really just cosmetic. You're cleaning up the brown tips, and it's almost inevitable that Dracaenas get brown tips at some point, especially because houseplants are houseplants, but they're always going to do better in nature. But when you bring them in the house and you have air conditioning, you have heating, and inevitably, you might, stuff happens, you underwater it, you overwater it. With a Dracaena, they get brown tips. So you just clean it up with a pair of scissors and bring it to a point again. And at least it'll look healthy all over again, and it won't brown up again for a while, or maybe not again. But so it's funny, that happens to be a low light plant. That doesn't need any direct sun at all.
Okay.
And the succulent, on the other hand, in the purple pot, that will do better with sun, but they actually can live almost anywhere. It would take a long time for it to die. The more sun it have, it would thrive. It might even bloom. But if it doesn't have the full sun, it would probably just live a long time. The worst thing you can do with a succulent when it's not getting sun is to overwater it, because it's not drinking the water at all, and it doesn't have the sun to make it. So succulents can live, they'll thrive in the sun, but by all means, if they're not in the sun, you don't want to overwater them. So one of the biggest problems with plants is most people overwater them. And a lot of times, if you have a plant in a container and it doesn't have drainage, and you water it too much, it sits in there and it can rot, and it doesn't want to have wet feet all the time. So the roots don't want to be wet all the time, especially a succulent. So even the Dracaena, that would get brown tips, whether it was overwatered or underwatered. Well, it's something that's really hard to tell, because they're either going to turn yellow or get brown. And but more than likely that one probably dried out. And a lot of times with overwatering, they get black spots in the leaves, which means there's too much moisture in the leaf and it's rotting. It starts in the root and then goes up to the plant. So that's probably just a lack of humidity or a lack of water.
Is there a way, so like, is it once a week that I'm watering it, or is there a way to test? Because I know with, we have some planters that like you can actually, you want to feel, but with one of the, even this, is it like once a week?
The best way is to actually feel it. Like with the succulent, if you stick your pinky in between there and you feel the soil and it's the least bit moist, you don't want to water it. If it's parched, you want to give it some water, but you see with that pot there, that's probably a pot within a pot. Like
it is. This is a Home Depot special. Sorry, David.
So what you want to do is, it's very healthy, but you must be but when you water it, water will flow through that. That has holes in the bottom, and the other pot doesn't. You don't want it to sit in water ever. Okay. So you want to give it just enough water, so maybe a little bit comes out of the holes in the bottom, but you don't want to have like an inch of water in the bottom all the time. It will rot, especially the succulent. So, but if you feel that and it's totally dry or parched, you know it needs water, and you just have to eat. And after a while, like for instance, the succulent in the purple pot, that would probably take, I don't know how many ounces, like 3 ounces of water. And you'd probably end up doing that at the most every 2 weeks, but still feel it. And if it's moist, don't water it. The Dracaena also likes to be fairly dry, not as dry as the succulent, but that one might take a half a cup or a cup of water, and it would probably go at least a week too without water again. But if you find that it's moist after a week, then you know, okay, I probably have to water it every 2 weeks. You get into a routine with them and it really is a matter of where they are. Are they getting a lot of sun? Are they not getting a lot of sun? Is it dry in the house? Because they'll drink more if it's dry, and they'll drink more if it's more sun. And so it's hard to say. It really depends on each plant and which location it's in as far as how often it gets watered. But it's just interesting that one of those is a low light plant, one of them is a high light plant, and they can both live in the environment you have with just one window. But the succulent would thrive more if it had sun.
I know some plants, specifically, I once had an orchid that was it was like an ice cube orchid. So you gave it 3 ice cubes, once a week or something like that.
Yeah, people do that. And I think that's because you don't want to, the biggest thing people do with orchids is, so orchids grow in trees by nature. They cling onto trees and they grow like in moss. They don't grow in soil, because in soil it would be too wet. They grow in moss, and they grow they kind of have air roots. They have some roots and they have some air roots. So really they just live on humidity and a little bit of moisture from a quick rain in nature. So you never want to have them wet all the time. So that's why people do the ice cube thing, because you're never really going to overwater them with ice cubes. They'll just slowly melt and slowly be kept slightly moist. So the ice cube thing works because it's, you don't have to think too much and you just do that. Or you just give them a little bit of water, once a week, let's say, or you get a mister and just mist the roots a little bit, because again, they just like humidity, and they don't, the worst thing you can do with an orchid is to keep the feet wet all the time, because that's not conducive to where they live in nature.
I'm having kind of a, this is the therapist and mind body teacher in me, but I'm having an analogy here with plants and humans, and that, even just in asking, I'm kind of asking you, like, just tell me what to do with my plant. And you're like, well, just get to know your plant. Like, put your fingers in there and see. And we do the same thing with our bodies, right? It'll be like, just tell me what to do. Like, should I be walking 3 days a week? Should I be blah, 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 blah? And oftentimes I'll say, well, we can, but ultimately we want to stop outsourcing the care of ourselves, right? So if we just spend a little time with ourselves, we can actually get more in tune with what our needs are. And it's the same thing with plants. Like I get in the trap of treating my plants like I treat myself, of just like being like, well, just tell me what to do, and just like kind of tuning out to take care of myself. When really ultimately we want to tune in. And so they're kind of a great lesson in that.
Yeah.
It might be a little cheesy, but
the beautiful thing about plants is they're kind of always there, and you can pay attention to them, periodically, but they actually don't need care every day. They don't need care every other day. You can't let them go a week or 2 or 3 without care. But the nice thing about them is they're giving you beauty. You're admiring them, but they're easy. And I think that's the important thing is and most of the plants we sell are easy. I mean, most people live in the city, our stores, or they're, most people don't have, huge windows and, atriums and, with there's a lot of light or greenhouses. So we buy plants that are very easy to take care of. I mean, on the spectrum of low light, there's a slew of like philodendron varieties that are either hanging plants or Salome philodendrons or split leaf philodendrons, or a whole variety of them that are very, very easy to take care of. And then there are Sansevierias, the old-fashioned term is mother-in-law tongues, but they're just these, but there's all different shapes and sizes of those. They don't need any care practically. They can go very dry. They don't need sun. ZZ plants, very, very easy to take care of. I'm naming all the plants I have in my house. I mean, who wants that?
Just
Yeah.
I mean, I like hassle free too, and they're
just
beautiful.
Preload my cart.
And then on the spectrum of highlight, like I said, the succulents and the jades, and there's a whole array of aloes and agaves and jade plants and et cetera that are just really, really, really easy to take care of. And so I think that's the nice thing about plants, is that they don't have to. And on the other hand, if you want more beauty, you get cut flowers, and that's even really, you really something to admire. And they're more fleeting, which makes them beautiful, because they're fleeting. They're meant to just be. I think some of the most beautiful flowers are flowers that are only around for a particular season, and they don't last that long. But the beautiful thing is they're only available at a certain time, and it reminds you of that season, and then you move on to something else. That's the beauty of flowers, is you can get something different all the time. The plants are kind of a constant green backdrop, and the flowers is like, something that's even more beautiful and fleeting, and you can brings your attention to them. It beautifies your space even more, but it's the beauty of them is that it's ever changing.
Just
That's
like our
awesome.
emotions. Dave, we should just go on tour together. I'll talk about their emotions and the mind. You talk about plants.
No, it's cool. I mean, yeah. I mean, most people who have a place where they do yoga, or people, and we used to actually have yoga outside at our garden center, because people just love that. And so anytime somebody has a special place where they work out, I think it's nice to have a plant or flowers or something like that as part of it, because it's, again, there's just a lot of in common with it's all in an effort to kind of bring you out of the day-to-day.
Sarah, based on, like what you said, you had many people, or I guess, let me rephrase this. Many people are having, whether they realize it or not, a lot more alone time, whether it's you're not in the office, but you're alone working all day and only interacting via either social networks or your phone or your computer. I know one of your self-care tips was getting outside or getting out of your space as much as possible, and taking a deep breath. Do you have any additional ones? I mean, first thing that combining the two of you pops into my head is plant night and making your own little terrarium of sorts. But do you have any other tips or thoughts or suggestions you're giving those that you're speaking to?
Yeah, I mean, I think, in general, but right now, like really trying to identify what brings some pleasure to your life. And that might be plants and flowers, right? Like okay, maybe I'm going to commit to getting flowers every 2 weeks, and prioritizing pleasure. And when I say pleasure, I say this, the umbrella of self-care. It's actually, I've adapted the definition of happiness, which when I talk about happiness, I talk about it as an umbrella term that encompasses everything from contentment to euphoria. And oftentimes when we think of happiness, people get caught up in this trap of chasing euphoria, of like, it needs to be wonderful and great and awesome. And actually what we really want to look for is just the general contentment piece. So even when I'm talking about pleasure, right, like just thinking about things that just make you go, right? Like I walk in and I see my flowers and, oh, that's pretty. Oh, one bloomed, right? And it's just, it might be 30 seconds, but it's a moment of pleasure or pleasantness, right? And so prioritizing that for yourself as best as possible. And this is really, it's a recalibration for many of us, because as we said, like the things that we knew were sure things that brought us pleasure might not be available to us anymore. But anything that, even though we're in such a virtual world right now, getting off your screens is so key. If you can take a meeting on the go, or even just stand, like getting movement and walking away from technology, really prioritizing that is so key. So those are kind of some additional things I would say, and just reiterating the compassionate discipline piece, and being honest with yourself when you look at your day. How are you spending the time that is not, dedicated to work meetings and things like that? And plan for a routine, or maybe if it's 20 minutes in the morning or 20 minutes at an hour at a lunch break, or maybe it's after the kids go down. Getting really clear on how you're spending your time. And while, a great Netflix series is something I love, just like many of us, if you're doing that every night and you're sitting on the couch and you're on another screen, it's not ideal for your mind and body, because we're just on screen so much more. So turning off the screen, movement, and getting outside, really just getting back to basics. And as I said, that is one of the actual, I think, gifts of COVID, is that we have, for many of us, we'd forgotten how simple and important they really are, and how fundamental they also are for our well-being.
And I would just piggyback on that and say that, to self-promote for a moment, if you want to, these feelings, or if you want to share them, then by all means, that's what we're here for, to thank somebody, or if somebody's down or you want to connect with somebody, then you call up Winston's, or you go on the website, and it can be delivered same day, and you can actually just uplift somebody. And again, there's an old saying, say it with flowers. When you don't know quite what to say, flowers kind of says it all, you know what I mean? So whether it's thanking somebody, or it's somebody's birthday, to have that delivered to them, you're bringing that joy to somebody. So I would just encourage you to reach out and send flowers, buy something for yourself. But so that's of course what I want people to do. But I just want, but I just want to encourage people, that nature is all around us. And I know a lot of people live in the city and don't have as much access, but at my house, and I have 4 kids, and we grew up, or they grew up just going out into the yard, and we used to have contests. Okay, go out into the yard and make a bouquet and come back, and we'll see who has the prettiest bouquet of whatever they picked out in the yard. So, and it would just be a fun thing. We would actually make terrariums of stuff that they would find, little plants and saplings and mosses and rocks and things in the yard. So it's all around us, and you can actually, you know, snip some things outside that are around your home and bring them in and put them in a bud vase and put them on a bathroom shelf or something, or put them on a bedside table. Nature is all around us, and you always have an opportunity to bring a little bit of that inside. So if you really want to create something beautiful, jump on our website and grab something from us. But if you're, you know, you just want something small and quick and to snip a few things from outside and bring them in, it can actually do the same thing for you, you know, and it's all around us.
I love that suggestion. Service and acts of kindness. They really are it's the gift that gives back. And, you know, maybe you do identify, you know, once a week or once a month, you pick someone that either you just want to send something to, or you know that they're struggling, and you send them flowers, you send them a online gift card, you send them a note, right? Maybe write them a letter, something like that. I think that's a wonderful suggestion.
Yeah, I mean, we get a lot of, you know, when people receive something that's unexpected and it's as beautiful as some of the things we put out, whether it's the sender or the recipient, some of the emails or comments or feedback that we get, it's really humbling that the impact that it has on the recipient and the sender, you know, and it's really meaningful. And so it just goes to, you know, unlike, you know, other, you know, whatever it might be, chocolates or candy or jewelry. I mean, there's a real sentiment behind flowers, I think, because it's nature, and it comes from, you know, somebody had to grow something, somebody had to pick it, somebody had to put it together, and you know, there's something really personal about the whole process. So we get a lot of really beautiful feedback from people who are just really appreciative of when they receive something, and senders who receive feedback from recipients on some of the product we send out. It really is emotional and goes a long way.
Is there anything in particular you would say is like a plant for positivity that, or like that, I don't know, an item that you see a lot of people sending for that just because reason, besides flowers?
I think any of them. You know, a lot of the choices are made around personal taste of the recipient. So if it's a, you know, does it call for, you know, somebody might have a new home or they're a student, and you might say, oh, you know, maybe a plant will brighten up their new apartment, so a plant is appropriate. On the other hand, if it's condolence and, you know, that's something floral and somebody might need more of an uplift, then something floral is more appropriate. I think it really depends on the, you know, that's what's nice. You know, if you call us, we can walk you through it, but it's really all about the sentiment, you know, what is the occasion, what is the recipient's taste, what is it for, and we help you through that and just pick the right thing. But honestly, any of it, I mean, who doesn't want any of it? I mean,
True.
Who doesn't want a
Very
plant?
true.
Who doesn't want, you know, whether the flowers are yellow or pink? It really is personal preference at that point, but it's all, you know, nobody's not going to want any of it, you know.
True.
I actually sent some flowers to a friend of mine who I know she was working really late at night with 2 kids, and she sent me a picture. She deconstructed the bouquet. I never would have done this. And she made like 5 separate things, and she sent me a picture of each one in her house, all the places she'd put the different bouquets or little flowers. And it really did, every single picture, like I got that wave of pleasure and contentment. It just felt so
She
good.
probably had a lot of fun doing it, you know.
She
It probably,
did, yeah.
whatever she was working on, it took her out of that, and she made 5 bouquets. She probably maybe even did it with her children, but it probably was a really fun thing because, like I say, you know, when you're working with flowers, when you're taking care of your plants, when you're doing the gardening, it takes you out of your head. So I'm sure over and above the finished product, the whole process was probably, you know, was a really nice mental health exercise.
Yeah.
This has been Awesome. Thank you both so much. And I've been keeping an eye on the questions that have been coming in. Ironically, I think as we were speaking about the pets and plants that either won't kill our pets or that our pets won't kill, all three of the questions that came in are around pets and plants and ones that are easy to care for and cat and dog friendly. So I think we've hit on that, which is great. The conversation with both of you has been fantastic today. If you have one last parting thought, feel free to share it now.
I think, if you're bored and you just want to surf our website, it's beautiful, so you can see pictures of gardens and nature and arrangements and weddings. And so I think just, I would encourage you to just, I know that Sarah doesn't want us on the screen so much, but you might as well be looking at pretty things to be inspired by. But
Yes,
I
totally
guess
boring.
I would say that, again, plants and flowers are, whether you buy a little tiny plant that Sarah has, it can bring a lot of joy to you, or you can buy an over the top, whatever, and spend hundreds of dollars on a big, beautiful arrangement, depending on but it's all, that's what's nice about when you shop our stores. You can find a little plant in the greenhouse or a couple of stems from the table, or you could buy a vessel that's, a really designer piece. And we have something for everybody. And it all really does the same thing.
Awesome. Sarah?
Awesome. Yeah, I would just, a little plug for myself is to check out theschoolofmom.com. My clinical website is Be Well with Sarah, and Sarah has an H, bewellwithsarah.com. And you can follow me on Instagram. That's at the.schoolofmom. And I would say, one big thing around the mindfulness practices is this, it wasn't meant to be practiced in isolation. It was meant to be practiced in community. So there are some really awesome meditation and mindfulness resources out there, even local to Boston. We have Cambridge Insight Meditation Society that has a lot of virtual offerings now. The School of Mom has mindfulness offerings. You can download some apps, 10% Happier is a great one. Headspace, there's some common ones. And you can actually meditate with other people, even though you're not in the same room. And just having that sense of community is so important when we do some of these practices, because mindfulness meditation can be hard. Being alone with your thoughts and your body and sometimes can be hard. So I would say, getting into communities that help you support the choices you want to make. I'm sure there are plant forums and plant communities, right? To talk about your plants and your garden, and there's sourdough bread communities, right? So I think that would be the last thing I would say is just find a community that it's not work. Maybe there's some work people in it, but that's not work and not work related, not housework related, so that you can connect with people on something that does fill you up.
Awesome. Thank you. And thank everybody who joined us today. I will be sending out a follow-up email to those who attended with both of the websites and a recap. So if anyone else has any additional questions, you'll be able to reach out. And David and Sarah, thank you so much for taking the time today and joining our Women of Withum presentation.
Thank you,
You're
Krista.
welcome.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Nicole.
everyone.
Thank you for everything at Withum, and thank you, Sarah. It was fun doing it with you.
Thanks,
Thank
David.
you, guys.
Okay. Signing out.